Hi sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to my channel. Hope you all great. Disclaimer: this video reflects my personal opinions and commentary. It is not intended to harass, harm, or defame any individual. Content is for discussions and educational purposes. So Nolan Wells' autopsy came, and the truth is that a whole lot is going wrong, or a whole lot has gone wrong. But I really do hope that there is a sign, and that there is something that will actually make us know who the real culprits. Because did something happen? Something happened. Was that young man unalive? He was unalive. Now they are saying that his body was completely decomposed, that they couldn't factor some certain things and all that, and the autopsy is undetermined. And when people say the body was decomposed, like this guy, okay, let's say he went out on 4th of July, right? Let's say at night. What happened during the night. And then the next morning, that is what? 5th. He was found on the 6th. So which means, let's say 1 day plus, his body has completely not decomposed. Because some certain things that this Mississippi are trying to tell us, especially the cops, because at first they say no foul play. Not until the parents are taking all this out. You know what? What happened to the neck? Because I need to know what happened. If when you are doing autopsy, you have to completely let go of the throat or whichever one that they took away. Let's understand what is going on. Let's get into it.
So today, the family of Nolan Wells released the findings of their independent autopsy report. Understand that this autopsy report does not include a toxicology report at this time, and the state's autopsy report has not been released either. So let's listen to what Ben Crump had to say about this independent autopsy report's findings.
So, Dr. Roger Mitchell, board-certified forensic pathologist, performed a preliminary report on the death of Nolan Xavier Wells. He conducted and presented this report on July 19th, 2026. Preliminary report, second autopsy, death of Nolan Xavier Wells. Cause of death, undetermined, pending investigation. And we'll explain that as we go through the report this morning. The manner of death, undetermined, pending investigation. Statement of examination. This forensic pathologist was retained to perform a second autopsy examination on the body of Nolan Xavier Wells.
Once again, this is a preliminary independent autopsy report. There has been no toxicology report attached to these findings as of yet. Now, a few things. Dr. Mitchell, the doctor that performed this autopsy report, stated that he could not determine whether Nolan was conscious or unconscious when he entered the water. He also stated he was unable to directly observe Nolan Wells's lungs or his stomach to talk about water intake and the content of his stomach at the time of his death. He furthermore went to state that due to the decomposition of the body, he was unable to determine if any bruises were on the body, and he did not note any broken bones in association with the body. Dr. Mitchell noted that parts of Nolan Wells' throat were not in his body when it was received for review, and therefore he could not rule out injury of the neck as a contributor to the cause of death. So understand, at this time, the preliminary autopsy does not include an autopsy of the lungs, the stomach, or the missing parts of the neck, which are not unusual for a state to hold on to when a pending investigation is still underway. And once again, the state has not released the findings of their autopsy. Having said all that, I do have the following takeaway. I find it very interesting that in light of all this, that the Jackson County Sheriff's Department was so willing and so quickly to rule Nolan Wells' death an accidental drowning. Tonight, I will be showing the entire review of the autopsy as conducted by Ben Crump today, and we will discuss it. So, stay tuned. We will keep you informed.
Nolan Wells' second autopsy has been performed. I listened to all the information, so you didn't have to. First and foremost, Dr. Roger Mitchell Jr. was the one that performed the autopsy. He is board certified. With over 20 years of experience, you can pause to read his stat. Now, I want to be clear, we do not have the results of the first autopsy. This is the one that was performed by Ben Crump that was supplied by Colin Kaepernick. Now, first and foremost, the cause of death and the manner of death of Nolan Wells is undetermined, pending investigation. And here's a list of things of why it's undetermined. Advanced decomposition limited the examination. The second autopsy happened after the first autopsy had already been completed. Key structures and information are not available, and more information from the autopsy and the toxicology is needed. Now, here is what Dr. Mitchell did find. There were no fractures identified and no deep tissue injury, but there was a 12 by 8 centimeter area of red discoloration found in the deep soft tissue over the optical bone, the back of the head, and needs to be further investigated. Now, what couldn't be evaluated on Nolan Wells' body was his neck. For some reason, that did not come with his body to the second autopsy. Dr. Mitchell could not directly evaluate any of those things. And here are the other limitations: airway, lungs, stomach contents, original body condition, and original toxicology. They're holding shit back in that first autopsy. And last, here are the list of questions that Ben Crump and his team still need answered. Like how Nolan Wells entered the water. What was his body position when he was found? Was there water in his airway or his lung? Is there any evidence of injuries in the anterior neck structures? Because we don't have that. Toxicology report, stomach content. With all these questions still not answered, Dr. Mitchell stated that he cannot rule out whether an intervening non-accidental factors contributed to the cause of Nolan Wells' unaliving, which means that someone could still be responsible for taking Nolan Wells' life. And until we get more information on the body, the autopsy, and the toxicology, we won't know for sure. I find it kind of odd we get this toxicology before we get the first one. What are they hiding in Mississippi? That's the question I have right now.
That Ben Crump autopsy, man. Yo, man. All of y'all involved is gonna burn in hell, bro. All of y'all involved gonna burn in hell, bro. You mean to tell me they can't determine the cause of death because y'all still got his motherfucking throat? The medical examiner in Mississippi, she sent everything to the other she sent his entire body to do the second autopsy. Everything but his fucking throat. But they see there's blunt trauma force in the back of the head. Now they can't even check the airway to determine if it was drowning or not. And it wasn't drowning. Because if it was drowning, his throat would have been with his body. Who the fuck gave you the authorization to take the fucking throat, bro? What kind of fucking shit is that? And the reason why they took it is because that was the cause of death. They strangled him. They hit him in the back of the head. They either hung him or strangled him, and they threw him on that fucking island. Like he wasn't worth a fucking damn. And that's fucked up, man. That's why his friends wasn't at the fucking funeral. Talk about some death threats. The reason why they receiving death threats is because they did some shit they had no business fucking doing to somebody they considered a fucking friend. Cause if that's my motherfucking friend, no matter where, I'm gonna be in that goddamn funeral. Cause that's my motherfucking friend that's getting laid down. I don't give a damn about a death threat. Take me out too, nigga. Cause that's my motherfucking friend. That's how I would've went down. But they ain't go down like that. They lawyered up and now they on podcasts doing interviews. Like they some motherfucking celebrities. God, that shit got me hot this morning. And I just watched that.
This is wild, y'all. We got some updates in the Nolan Wells case. Benjamin Crump, during a press conference, just presented what their second independent autopsy was results came out as. And a lot of things were inconclusive. A lot of things were undetermined. His manner of death, Nolan Wells' manner of death, was undetermined. They could not even figure out his time of demise. That is the wildest thing I've ever seen. And one of the things that he said, due to the several limitations that were presented when he received Nolan Wells' body, is that one important piece was missing from Nolan: his throat. His throat was missing. So he couldn't even figure out whether there was water if water was in the airways, or if water was filling up the lungs or anything like that. He could not determine his actual Nolan Wells' demise. He couldn't even figure out the cause of demise due to the several limitations that were presented and given to him when Nolan Wells' body was transferred from Mississippi to Washington, D.C., to his office, to his lab, so that he can run his investigation into Nolan Wells' body. But there were too many dead ends that stopped him from being able to figure out what actually happened to Nolan Wells. There was also bruising, allegedly, or red marking on the back of Nolan Wells' head. They say it wasn't hard enough to fracture the skull or leave a laceration, but it was there. Now people are wondering, was he hit in the back of the head and then dragged into the water? What actually happened here? We don't know. Here's the other thing. The fact that his throat is missing, some people are speculating that maybe he was suspended, if you get what I'm saying. And the thing is that, I don't see any trees on that Horn Island, so the only other thing I can think of is he went out somewhere else to like the mainland, lost his life by suspension or something like that, and then he was brought back to the island. The only other thing also is someone maybe wrapped their hands around his neck and took him out that way too. But all that is undetermined because where's his throat? A crucial piece to this whole thing to figure out if it was dry drowning or if he succumbed to water, anything like that, all those things gone, because that body part was still in Jackson County. Is this a clerical error? Is this a cover-up? What are your thoughts, guys? Because this is wild. Of all things, you'd think every piece of the puzzle would be going to Washington, D.C., right? That's wild. Pieces of the puzzle, and all they got is corner pieces.
Nolan Wells' throat is in Mississippi while the rest of his body is in DC, according to the medical examiner who performed the second autopsy. It is not abnormal to remove the organs and to place them in the bag with the rest of the body, but his throat is missing. His entire throat is missing. His larynx, his hyroid, his thyroid, all internal structure of this young man's throat is missing. The first medical examiner did not give any specifics or didn't even tell the new examiner that the throat was not going to be in there. They have literally taken this young man's life and have stolen his voice from him. You cannot tell me this isn't symbolic. You cannot tell me this is not an echo to the past when they used to keep trophies from black bodies. They know his body tells a story, and they have literally stolen the voice from him to tell his story. What is the accountability here, and what do we do to stop these cultural practices? Because they have never stopped, and they're only going to continue as long as we allow it to happen. And that is every single person in this country, and that is every single person, particularly in the South, looking at their own role in this, because at the end of the day, you are easily going to be able to turn your phone off or forget about this in a few months, because it doesn't happen to anybody or everybody, but it's only going to affect communities at large if it starts happening to everybody.
Guys, they just released Nolan Wells' private autopsy from DC, and they said that his throat is missing. They removed his throat because they didn't want to prove that he was murdered. They removed his throat. He had bruises on his head. Oh, and none of the guys that were on the boat with him that day came to his funeral. Lock him up! Like, people need to be held accountable today. Today. That medical examiner in Mississippi, lock her ass up. She is scary.
Okay, so the results of the preliminary autopsy done in the independent investigation have been shared out. And before I get into what was found, I just want to say that the hardest part of all of this for me has been watching his parents grieve. I'm looking at the dad today at this news conference, and my heart breaks for him because I can tell that he has not eaten, slept, or had any peace since his son was reported missing. And my heart goes out to both his mother and father because watching them grieve publicly has just been really hard for me as a parent. Now, the cause and manner of unaliving were undetermined based on this independent autopsy. But one of the most important things that I think we need to discuss is that his neck or parts of his throat were not sent with the rest of his body for them to see if there were any injuries or blunt force trauma to his neck or throat area. Now, we all know why that's important, especially in places like Mississippi. Now, they're saying that the medical examiner from Mississippi still has the parts of the throat that were not sent over. But my thing is, if they were so quick to rule that there was no foul play in the beginning, what is taking them so long now to complete their autopsy? That they started first. Now, another important thing to note is that they are saying that there could have possibly been a neck injury or an injury to the back of his head. And some people are speculating that it could be when you put him on a slab, sometimes that injury is caused. But I think what's important for us to know is whether or not he was carried away from the scene on his face or on his back, because they found him face down in the sand. And one last thing I want to say related to the autopsy, but not related, is that I wasn't waiting for the autopsy to determine whether or not I believe there was foul play. I believe there was foul play from the beginning. I believe there was foul play based on his mother's intuition. I always believed that there was some sort of...
What do you mean the front of Nolan's neck was missing? I'm about to explain, but we finally got the independent autopsy report that his family had done, and we got some crazy findings. Trigger warning, but first we found out that Nolan was given back without the front of his neck, stating that during the first autopsy, it was removed by the examiner for further examination. For a sheriff department that keeps saying there's no signs of foul play, you guys keeping his neck says a lot. We found out that Nolan might have been hit in the back of the head because they found red discoloration about 12 by 8 inches in length. The examiner also kept his lungs, so again, the independent autopsy was not able to check if he actually drowned or if he had, water in his lungs. Also, the examiner did say they had trouble looking for bruising due to how far the body was decomposing. But the independent examiner says that they are not ruling out foul play, that they cannot determine how he passed away. So basically, we have to wait for the autopsy from the police. The sheriff keeps saying that there's no foul play involved, right? But for your examiner to remove the front of his neck, stating that it needs to be examined further, and for y'all to still not be able to tell us if there was water in his lungs or not.
And no, we don't owe y'all an apology because the death was undetermined, meaning that the examiner could not find the cause of death with what he was sent by the Mississippi State examiner. Nolan's throat was missing. There was a large red part of the back of Nolan's head that could lead to possible internal cranial damage. He couldn't tell the contents of the stomach because the stomach was already cut open and examined by the Mississippi State examiner, and we don't have that autopsy released yet. We're also still waiting for the toxicology report. I need y'all to understand there was a 12 by 8 inch area of red, deep tissue discoloration in the back of Nolan's head, indicating intracranial hemorrhaging. You tell me how somebody gets that from an accidental drowning. His trachea and hyoid bone were missing, held by the state of Mississippi, by the examiner over there. While I understand that some people are gonna say that to hold back the neck structures are a typical procedure, right? This is what they always do. The independent examiner himself, Mitchell, said that the only reason to withhold those parts of the body back, those specific bones, would be to check for neck fractures, which is exactly why the absence from the independent autopsy of those body parts is a big fucking deal. So the examiner determined the cause of death undetermined, not inconclusive. Undetermined, meaning he could not determine the cause of death with what he was given. That should be raising a lot of red fucking flags about what the state of Mississippi withheld and what they have on their report. And let's not pretend like this is the first time that they've done this when it comes to black bodies in Mississippi, or America in general, for that matter. So if anybody needs to be apologizing, it should be y'all apologizing to us for telling us we're making everything about race.
So the independent autopsy for Nolan Wells was unveiled today at the NAACP convention, and it's leaving people with more questions. Um, this autopsy really unveiled um, very suspicious actions in part to the Mississippi Police Department and the medical examiner that's working with them. And so we're going to talk about that. From the findings, there was 2 lesions in the back of his head, one that was really, really red. They did a thorough investigation of the body. There was no broken bones, no fractures. But supposedly because the Mississippi Police Department and the medical examiner on their behalf is not done with the investigation, they returned the body of Nolan Wells back to the family for their own autopsy and funeral service. Him with no neck. No neck? Like, what? For as long as they've had the body and they have time to investigate it, there should be no way that the family should have had missing body parts when it comes to their own son. This is crazy to me. So, yeah. Also, the mention of him drowning as far as his death, that was debunked because there was no water found in the lungs or anything of the sort as far as there's proof to be that there was a drowning. So now it's looking very suspicious on the Mississippi Police Department's end, on the medical examiner who worked on the first autopsy end, and we need some answers. We need some clear answers as to what's going on there. So yeah, it's really crazy. The death is ruled undetermined. Everything is still being investigated, but that's what has been found so far. So
Nolan Wells' autopsy could not be determined because there was missing body parts, specifically his throat and other organs. Yeah, there's a bunch of foul play, and it shows us that there's so much to unpack in this that we still have Mississippi being stuck in time, specifically when it comes to the legal authority and how we're able to make sure the general welfare of black people is being taken care of, specifically when it comes to equal protection of the law. Because we can already tell that there is some type of conflict of interest with one of these alleged, you know what I'm saying, persons that did something to Nolan Wells, and having a family member that's up high in power that's able to do some things like this. If some of you are asking yourself, what do I mean by that? The first medical examiner is an employee of the state of Mississippi, meaning they have a whole bunch of ethical and legal guidelines and standards they're supposed to be able to go by, especially when it comes to sending off a body for a autopsy. Then Jay-Z was criticizing Colin Kaepernick. This man paid for the autopsy. Well, his parents knew, man, some foul play going on right here. We want us a different independent autopsy to be done. And then what we see right here, there are missing body parts. And not only is there missing body parts, we have evidence that he has some bruises in the back of his head, showing that this drowning scenario y'all done showed us is really pissing on our leg and telling us it's raining. But we know better. I want y'all to think about the unapologetic abrasion for the law that the state of Mississippi is showing us. The entire world is focused on this case, and they still figured out a way to not cross their T's and dot their I's when it came to sending this little boy's body. And then I'm gonna say little boy's body because I've seen so many news outlets and headlines describe this child as a teenage man, though they making sure they put teenage in there. Shout out to the sister that's been doing the content about all the ways that the media literacy is trying to make us misread and miswrite. You know what I'm saying? The shit that's going on, I'm gonna say it's illiteracy. All the twists and turns this case is making. At first we was led to believe the only thing that returned from that island was his cell phone. Then we learned all of the things and the apps that his parents had to do for his cell phone to get back to them. And then we learned that there's so much things that's been deleted on this cell phone. Then we learned that the boat that left him returned back and then drove all the way back to Biloxi, Mississippi, away from the island. The independent autopsy could not determine his cause of death because key throat structures and other organs removed during the first autopsy were unavailable. The Mississippi official autopsy and toxicology findings could have not been released. I want y'all to remember, in the Ahmaud Arbery case, the local municipality found that the man were not guilty for hunting Ahmaud Arbery like he was a goddamn pig to be slaughtered. It had to be attention from the media, specifically social media on these timelines, for us to get this case overturned because of the national attention.
Now we got to do the same thing.
So you mean to tell me Nolan Wells went to a second place to get an autopsy and they received his body with no fucking throat? You do not believe me? You can go look this shit up. They went and took Nolan Wells' body to a second place to get an autopsy done. A second, coroner, whatever you want to call it. They said they received the body without his throat. If he drowned, and that's what they discovered in the first autopsy, why wouldn't you keep the fucking throat on his body? What kind of demonic shit is going on? That's some demonic ass shit. Why would you take his throat? At this point, I don't put nothing past these motherfuckers kept his organs in his fucking brain. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. RIP to Nolan Wells. I'm sorry the family has to deal with this, bro. But this is absolutely absurd. If he died from drowning, why would you keep his throat and then send his throatless body to a second place to get an autopsy done? This is demonic, bro. And this shit is fishy as hell. Something is not fucking right with these people, bro. And it's given. I forgot the dude name who got rolled up in the gym mat. And they went and did an autopsy and they stuffed his body with newspaper, but all his organs was gone. It's giving that. It's giving they're harvesting fucking organs, bro. That's what it's giving. You do not believe me? You can go look this shit up. RIP, man. I don't even want to follow this story no more because it's so many fucking twists and turns for a simple autopsy, bro. You remove his throat and then send his body to the second coroner for them to do an autopsy. How the fuck they supposed to determine if he drowned if they don't have his fucking throat? I am done. Anybody that's following this case, this is absolutely fucking ridiculous. This is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Oh my lord. They sent this man's body without a throat. But the main cause of death was him drowning. I may not be a motherfucking knife. I may not be the sharpest fucking tool in the toolbox. But I am not no fucking spoon. I may have been born at night, but I was not born last night. Something fishy is fucking going on. And anybody that says anything elsewise, get the fuck out.
So the autopsy came back for Nolan Wells today, and apparently with the second autopsy, the first autopsy did not send his throat. Throat is missing, and he had a lot of redness and bruising in the back of his neck and the back of his head pretty much. And they also did not send over his lungs. In my opinion, of course, that means somebody choked him, strangled him, and or hit him upside the head. And we're going to have a lot of people still debating this, that he just drowned. He did not just drown. And with all those people around them, especially with Warren coming out with this interview, saying that there was a lot of people around them, that means he couldn't have drowned with nobody seeing something. So this doesn't make any sense. He was definitely murdered. Somebody definitely choked him, strangled him, hit him upside the head, something. And all the people around them, like Warren said, there's no way they didn't see anything.
So I think that the Nolan Wells situation is very telling. Ben Crump is basically telling us that he could not fully get that little boy's body properly checked medically because of his missing organs. The fact that they took his lungs, I mean, now I'm only 100% thinking like y'all knew that there was no water in those lungs, and y'all knew that if his parents pay for their own separate autopsy, they would be able to prove that. Also, they knew that the little boy's throat was very important. I think that the throat was important to see if he ingested the water or if he was placed in the water. And for them to take his throat is very serious, because your throat, the depth of a person's throat goes from your mouth all the way to your pelvic floor. So for them to remove that part of his body is very strategic, very spiritual, and very sickening. I think somebody else should have been reading the autopsy reports and made it very clear to everybody so that we could understand exactly what information y'all did have and what information y'all didn't have. For some reason, I am emotionally disconnected from this case now. I do not feel like what I'm seeing is genuine. And I'm working through that because I want to know and I want to see everything.
Nolan's throat was removed because the Mississippi medical examiner knew that was going to be related to the cause of death. This is what happened with the autopsy, and you can't tell me no difference. They did the first autopsy, removed all his organs out of his body because they said, oh, hey, that's going to point to a murder. Oh, that's going to point to a murder. Literally removed all that shit. And then the family said, okay, we want our own autopsy. They said, oh, hey, you can. They removed his fucking throat, everything, major organs out of his body, and gave his family a shell and basically said, oh, yeah, you can have a second autopsy. Go ahead, here you go, with nothing to work with. So it's hard to find a cause of death with no fucking organs in your body. Independent autopsy was released today, but they don't even have a cause of death, honestly. All they got is that he had a bruising on the back of his head. Now, what that does is it does rule out the first autopsy story saying that, oh, no, there was no foul play. No, but there was. Why the fuck does he have a 12x8 notch on the back of his fucking head? That's the only good I can see that come out of it. And I don't know, like, if y'all know how autopsies work, but they don't have to leave all the organs in there. They technically don't. The first motherfuckers, that's exactly what they did. They removed all his fucking organs so it could not point to a murder. And they gave the people who said, oh, hey, here you go. It's a shell. They gave him a body with nothing to work with, basically. So of course the second autopsy is going to come back kind of like inconclusive with not really that much cause of death because there's no fucking organs.
This is all I got from this video. Man, guys, let me be very clear because I have said this before. There was a video I made some days, I can't remember the day, but yeah, the past, maybe last week, where I was talking about sometimes it is not how, like when you hear somebody died, that some people actually went through a lot. Some people died going through a lot before they passed. This is this young man's case. Nolan fought for his life. He fought so hard, but he didn't make it. I don't want to imagine. I don't want to. Sometimes when we talk about this his case, I try to wrap my head around what he may have passed through before he died. It's crazy. I don't want to think about it. But one thing I want you to know is that you and I, black people, already know that something went wrong. I also remember I brought a video where I was talking about Ocean Spring in Mississippi. That was also the school he went to, right? Guys, if care is not taken, I really do pray that eventually we find an answer to this. But if care is not taken, with everything going around, they will dance around, and Mississippi will not give us anything. There won't be any tangible thing released because now they are saying it's not determined. And then what happened to the throat with the bruises at the back? And they say his body was already rotten. Guys, I want you to know that this young man went missing when? On the 4th. He didn't come back. He was outside till, let's say, fortnight, going to 5th, right? So his body was just found within 1 day plus. Anybody that dies, if you dies, 1 day is not enough for your body to decompose. I want you guys to understand this. Just a day is not enough. I have seen people who die, they will keep that person for more than a day, 2 days, probably to check it, and then before, depends on tradition and all that, before they will not go bury the person. So 2 days is not, I understood he was underwater, but 2 days is not enough for somebody to say that his body is decomposed to the extent that they could not figure anything out. Now, that throat that is missing or they are holding is where the truth is, because that young man did not drown. So if he did not drown, what happened to him? What happened to him? Why the bruises at the back? And also, I wanted to know that if you are doing autopsy, right? Because sometimes I am not a doctor, but I feel like there are doctors that can come out. I know everybody's like, nobody wants to come and talk something that maybe tomorrow they will they will go missing or something like that. But one thing I want to tell you is that if somebody dies, especially when there is, what is it called? If it is drowning, the person drowned and all that, I want you to know that what they will do is, first of all, they will make incision, right? They are not cutting off your throat, because why do you have to completely cut off the throat? And the worst part is that so many white people you see some people are the problem we are facing in this world. Somebody dies, and what you guys are very much busy trying to cover up is whether it is not from your race. You guys are very horrible people. You heard me right. Very horrible people, because majority of you are in the comment section lying. I don't know why you are lying over somebody's death. That yes, it's okay for body parts to be cut off, sorry, ma'am. Like, you took this part, you took the other part, they took the other part. What do you mean? Is autopsy not done in whole? Incision might be made, but completely cutting off. I don't understand it. But you know what? We have doctors in the house. We have people that can help us with this. But because so many things are wrong, you and I know that young boy was, yes. And the fact that they immediately ruled it, what is it called? No foul play. You guys are also the problem. Mississippi, you guys are also, your cops and everything are also the problem. Bye for now.